Good afternoon to everybody. We'd like to thank Susan and Bernie Wolf for sponsoring this video. This was Torah Ilui Nishmat, the mother of Susan, Batya Bat Yoel, Zichronah Livracha. May her neshama have an aliyah, Began Eden. We always remember her very fondly. We actually were like sort of semi-neighbors. She was two buildings away from where we lived. The Torah tells us that in Parshat Matot about the war of revenge that the Jewish people were ordered to wreak on the Midianites for what they did to Bnei Israel. This whole description of the war is like quite incredible because the Torah dedicates 54 psukim to speaking about this war. It's a description that is more than all the psukim that describes various wars from the beginning of Bereshit until the end of the Torah. In other words, in the book of Bereshit, you see that there was the wars in which Lot, Abraham's nephew, was captured, and then Abraham went and rescued him. And there was a war described over there between the 4 kings, the 5 kings. There was a war concerning Sichon, the wars against the battles against Sichon, the battles against Og, and all the wars that are described in the Torah. This war against the Midianite, it occupies, as I said, 54 psukim, more than any other of the wars. And it's like very detailed. It goes into who led the war, what was the reason for the war, what was who was conscripted, how they waged the battles, and when they came back from the battle, what they dedicated, how they divided up the spoils of the war, how they afterwards kashet kelim, etc. There's so many details about this one war, and it's all captured though in the Torah uses the language that Hashem told Moshe, what you have to do is that you have to arrange that to go out and on a war of vengeance against the Midianites. And this is quite incredible. Is that the reason to go to war? I mean, we know people go to war, let's say, to defend their territory, to expel people who are now occupying their territory, to defend their territory, but to go out to war just out of revenge, is that something that the Torah believes in, that this is a reason to go out to war, to endanger people, to conscript people, just as a feeling of revenge? I'd like to, there's one explanation which I saw. I'd like to offer another explanation, a well-known explanation of Rav Soloveitchik in another area, and I think, though, that it's applicable over here. Some people say that, they explain it like this, that the reason for the revenge is that when the Jewish people sinned with a Midianite woman, the whole honor of the Jewish people was totally broken. Imagine that in their first encounter that the Jewish people had with the outside world since coming out of Mitzrayim, right? The first time that they encountered a world which was outside their world, like sort of the general humanity, it was a like total and utter failure. There was like an assimilation. There was a moral degeneration, and then there was the result. The result was that the Torah tells us of 24,000 people who were killed, besides others. So can you imagine, after such an episode, the Jewish people, their whole moral fiber, the whole way that they looked at themselves was that this is what the Midianites could do to them. It was at its lowest ebb. So someone compared it to, let's say, a woman who is raped. If what you do is you appease the raper, and what you do is you don't take revenge on him, you don't sentence him to a very, very harsh sentence, then not only are you letting the rapist like sort of scot-free, but what you're doing is you are impeding in the rehabilitation of the woman who was raped. If the woman sees that her honor is taken seriously, the honor that has been disgraced, she sees now that the courts of law, that they take it seriously, that they're sensitive to what she went through. And therefore, what they do is they punishing the rapist like harshly. So then that will be part of a woman's rehabilitation. She'll be able to look at herself and to look at her inner feelings, her honor, and to say, look, there are people over here who are standing up to my honor. And therefore, this already helps her to cure herself psychologically, to bring herself to some form of equilibrium. And to look at herself in like a positive way. If it's not like that, and he gets like a last sentence, so they're not. Her humiliation is just intensified at one go around. So that's one very, very interesting way in looking at it. That why the Torah says yes, sometimes what we have to do is we have to go to war out of revenge. Which brings me to say the same thing basically, but in a more maybe a philosophical way, is that Rav Soloveitchik famously asked, why is it that when it comes to, let's say, Purim, what we do is we've got a mitzvah to publicize the nace of Purim, but the manner in which we publicize the miracle is by doing it in a private setting. In other words, well, semi-private. In other words, what we do is we go to shul, we read the Megillah. No one else besides the people in the shul know about the incident. We read and we learn from the Megillah, and that's when we read the Megillah and read about the downfall of Haman. So then that is the Pisumei Nisa. That's the publicizing the miracle of what Hashem did. So similarly, we've got a mitzvah to drink the 4 cups of wine on Pesach. And also, when we drink those 4 cups of wine, where do we do it? We do it in the privacy of our homes. Again, the Pisumei Nisa, the publicizing, the making known of the miracle has been made known to each family, to the members of his family and the guests at the Seder table. But yet, when it comes to Chanukah, that's when we light the Chanukah candles, we light them outside, or we in the windows overlooking the public. And who are members of the public? Well, they Jews and non-Jews alike. So why is it that on Chanukah there's a difference between publicizing to the public, whereas Pesach and Purim it's publicizing or making known to the private? Soloveitchik says because Purim and Pesach, what they did was they were holidays. They are holidays in which the Jewish people will attack physically. Number one, the enslavement of Mitzrayim. Secondly, the case of Haman, that Haman wanted to wipe out the Jewish people. And it's obviously then everybody knows that when people are attacked physically, of course, you're going to defend, unless you people from the United Nations when it comes to Jews. But I mean, every normal person understands that there's things called self-defense. So it's not a chidush. You don't have to broadcast that message to the outside world. But when it comes to Chanukah, what actually was the war on Chanukah? The war of Chanukah was the Jewish people weren't under threat of extermination. They were under threat of being spiritually attacked. Now, here's the chidush. Here's the chidush that the Jewish people told the nations of the world. They told the world, if you attack us on our spiritual being, that's no less and even more than in a way being attacked on our physical being. And therefore, we're going to go out to war, right? Even when it comes to people attacking our spiritual values. And that's what Yehuda Maccabi did. He rose up, and what he did was he went out to war to defend the spiritual integrity of the Jewish people. And that's why we asked at the beginning, we asked, well, what type of war is this? It's not like a war involved in the conquering of Eretz Yisrael. It's not a war of defending ourselves against an enemy. It's a war just out of vengeance. Yes, but it's a war out of vengeance because what the Jewish people had undergone was an attack on their spirituality. The daughters of Moab, right, with Midian, with Bilam, etc., they attacked the moral fiber of the Jewish people. And yes, the Torah says that is something that the Jewish people have to go to war on. That is something which is, it's nogaya to our very essence, our very, who we are, that we were put in this world to be moral people and Ola Goyim. So when that is attacked, yes, we have to go to war on that. And Hashem says one has to go out to war with a vengeance to uplift, to uphold those spiritual values of Am Yisrael. So Shabbat Shalom Lakulam.